Hi, third graders. So recently we've been reading the April Fool's joke, and so today we're going to dig into some of the things that you've seen in lots and lots and lots of books, but you may not have really noticed them. They're called quotation marks. Now, what is a quotation mark? Yeah, a quotation mark shows that someone is talking, that there is something called dialogue in there. Dialogue is just another way of talking about talking, really. So let's take a look at some quotation marks. And like we said, they show that someone's talking or dialogue. Something really neat that I saw from another teacher that I really found interesting was, so here's our quotation marks. She said that the first set is like it's the character opening their mouth to start talking. And then the second set over here is like the character closing their mouth because they're done with what they were saying. So when I heard that, that kind of gave me like that little bit of a light bulb moment going, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. They're talking when the quotations open up and then they stop talking once the quotations end. So that was a really neat way to kind of relate the two together. So you might be asking yourself, do I read dialogue like a robot? We've talked about robot reading before. No, you should never read dialogue like a robot. You shouldn't read anything like a robot. We've talked about this many, many times. We never want to read like a robot because then it becomes boring. We want to excite people when we're reading. We want to excite ourselves when we're reading. So how do I read dialogue? Yeah, we read dialogue as if we were the character talking. So if someone has some dialogue talking about being super excited to go to grandma's house, they wouldn't read it like, I'm so excited to go to grandma's house. Now, maybe if we need to work on it a little bit, you might read it that way the first time, but then you go back and you reread it as if the character were saying it. You wouldn't say, I'm so excited to go to grandma's house. You'd say, I'm so excited to go to grandma's house. You add in some excitement. So now we're going to go back and look at page, sorry, my revealer is getting in the way. We're going to look at pages 5 and 6, and we're going to go through and we're going to find all of the different quotation marks. I'm going to give you a heads up. There are a lot of them because in a lot of stories, the characters are talking, and every time the characters talk, they open their mouth. There's that first quotation mark, and when they stop talking, there's that closing quotation mark. So I'm going to use my highlighter here, and we are going to highlight the different quotation marks that we see. Now bear with me, I can't always see my highlighter. So we're going to read through it, and every time that we get to a quotation mark, we're going to stop, we're going to highlight it, and then move on. Okay? So we have Spencer found her at recess. He tossed her a bouncy rubber ball. Oh, there's our first quotation mark, so I'm going to highlight that. Let me change the color. Black isn't the most exciting color to have. Right. We got the first day of April, he said. Here's a big hint. If they're saying someone said something, there's usually some kind of quotation mark. Or, you know, they could be talking about she said, she yelled, they screamed, they shrieked, whatever, something to show that they are making the noises with their mouth. There's usually going to be some kind of a quotation mark around it. April Fool's Day. Look at that, we got a couple more. Not quite sure why I can't get to that one. Let me just move my little video up. Teacher's dealing with technical difficulties. April Fool's Day, there's another set. We open it with April Fool's Day and we close it. Marisol hadn't even thought about that. She bounced the ball back. Is that bad luck? Spencer shook his head. It's not about luck. It's more about jokes. Notice how I read that one. I didn't read it. It's not about luck. It's more about jokes. I almost put myself to sleep because that was boring. It's not about luck. It's more about jokes. Adding that little bit of tone and fluency makes it so much more interesting to listen to. Marisol frowned. What kind of jokes? There's some more. Whatever you want. Side note, I would be handing off the pen to allow my students to be doing this as well. Spencer threw the ball. Nobody knows how it started, but people have played April Fool's jokes for hundreds of years. Sometimes news reporters make up April Fool's stories as jokes. One news station broadcast a story about a software program that translated a dog's barks into words. People believed it. Marisol laughed. Then she started to get an idea. All right, so now let's practice reading some of these as if we were the character. So I'm only going to pick a couple. I'm going to read it as if I were the character, and then you will read it back to me, just like how I read it, okay? So I'm going to start with this one right here. Is that bad luck? You repeat. It's not about luck, it's more about jokes. What kind of jokes? All right, great job. I really heard some of you guys reading as if you were the characters, making sure to add in that fluency and making it sound like dialogue. All right, before we go, we're going to do one more thing. I have some sentences here, and we need to add in the quotation marks. Like I said before, I'm seeing these words like said and asked, and whined is another one. Exclaimed. Okay, so those are good signals to be like, hey, someone's talking. We need those quotation marks. So let's figure out where to put them. This is a great book, said Mrs. D. What is the person saying? So in this case, the person is saying, this, starting with this, is a great book. And then that's where they end talking, so that's where I'm putting the close quotation mark. Now here's a little different. We're starting with the speaker. Sally asked, can I come over and play? So Sally's not talking right away, so we would not put our quotation marks on the side of Sally. We would go all the way over to where she starts speaking, which is at the word can. We would put quotation marks here. Can I come over and play? And that's the end of her question and her talking. So we put our closing quotation marks there. How much longer? Whined Billy. What did Billy say? How much longer? And normally, yes, I would be sharing the pen again. It's just putting that out there. I can't wait for the weekend, exclaimed Ricky. So what did Ricky say? He said, I, starting with the I, so we're opening there because that's where he's opening his mouth to talk. I can't wait for the weekend. And then he's done talking. He closed his mouth. So that's where we close our quotations. Okay? So going back, when we are starting to talk, we open the quotations. When we are done talking, we close the quotations. Okay, they're kind of like bookends to what you're saying. Start talk, open. Stopping to talk, close it. All right. So tomorrow we're going to do a little bit of work with looking at the sequence of events of the story. And great job today.